Hey guys, it's RodimusPrimal. I am back in another video, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the new Transformers comic books by Skybound Entertainment. They are being published by Image Comics, and I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown about the first two issues, but what I think about them, and whether or not you should be reading them. And then I'm going to dive into some spoiler territory as I talk about some things that I really liked, some things that I was kind of about, and some things that I think that could have been a little bit different. So without further ado, let's sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's transform and roll out. So as I said, the new Transformers comic books are being made by Skybound Entertainment, and it's Daniel Warren Johnson who is doing the writing for it and also doing the pencil work, while Mike Spicer is doing the colors. And I will say this much, I've enjoyed the first two issues so far. It's kind of bringing you back to basics. It's bringing you back to that, the Autobot ship crash lands on Earth, Autobots and Decepticons are aboard, and they wake up on Earth in present day, and the fate of planet Earth hangs in the balance. And with that all said, I have to say, the things about this comic that I really enjoy are the facts that it brings you back to that basic story. They're not going with, they come to Earth via a space bridge, or, they turn into some space pods. No, it's the classic story about the ship that crash lands on Earth, and they all have their classic looks as far as what the characters are. But here's the thing. The comic book is definitely not made for kids. It is definitely more of a teen or, young adult style of. Not only the artwork kind of feels that way, but there's a grittiness to it. There's some violence in it that I would not recommend, younger kids to pick up a Transformers comic book. But at the same time, it brings you back to that familiar place where these characters and you can see these characters acting and behaving as you would expect them to, within certain, differences, of course, from how they've changed it from where storylines have changed and what have you. That being said, the first issue is exactly that. The Transformers wake up on Earth. You have Optimus Prime, you have Ratchet, you have Starscream, and there is some interesting story elements that happen there. And then issue 2 brings you more into who these characters are, and while at the same time you get to see a little bit more about these characters and how their storylines are going to interact and behave. And we're also going to be going into G.I. Joe. I kind of talked about this before I even read the first issue, that we knew that they were going to be doing that G.I. Joe was going to exist as a result of, and Cobra are going to exist because of the Transformers on Earth. So all of these G.I. Joe characters are going to interact with the Transformers, but they're going to have their own, storyline, while at the same time, the Skybound Entertainment is also publishing through Image the G.I. Joe continuation of Larry Hama. But that's not what I'm getting into here. Do I recommend picking this up? Well, I recommend it. I know the art style for some people might be a little off-putting. There are some people I saw complaining they didn't really like the art because it's hand-drawn. And so the art style might not be to if you like the, very rigid designs and over-complicatedness of the IDW comics, this is going to be a little bit more simplistic than you've been expecting. I actually appreciate that kind of like going back to simplicity for simplicity's sake. But at the same, and I actually enjoy the artwork. I think it's actually really awesome because we get to see some wrestling moves in there. We get to see some action. And at the same time, I can't wait to pick up issue 3 when it comes out, I have issue 2. Right now, currently, they're going to be doing a second printing, or it's a third printing of issue 1, and they're going to do a second printing of issue 2. That's how good this comic is and why so many people are excited about it, because, IDW was going into a place where it was all about turning Optimus Prime into a villain. And, towards the end, at least as far as how it felt. And then, I was not really comfortable with that. And then IDW 2 went into turning, everybody just walks around and talks politics for hours. And it was boring. This new comic, it's a lot of, it just like picks up the pace very quickly. And I appreciate that. So I do recommend picking it up. And now I'm going to start getting into some details that you may or may not want me to spoil, all things considered, because, well, some things happen in this comic that you might be angry about. But at the same time, I think that I'm hoping that it's not a permanent thing. So let me get into the spoilers. First and foremost, we find out that Spike Witwicky and his girlfriend Carly. Carly is a little bit different this time around. She looks a little bit different. She has darker hair instead of being a blonde. And her and her dad and Spike's dad are friends. Spike's older brother Jimmy was killed. You kind of see his corpse at the beginning of the comic book, and it's kind of gritty a little bit. And so Carly is now, instead of being the smart one, she's an artist, and Spike wants to be an astronaut. So I think it's kind of a different, very, very different take on these characters for the humans. But the Autobots and Decepticons, I honestly think that they're very much how I remember them, at least as far as how, watching Generation 1. And I appreciate that the Autobots and Decepticons are that way. That being said, Starscream is the first one to wake up because Jetfire comes in. For our first appearance of Jetfire was actually in Void Rivals. So if you've been reading the new Void Rivals comic book, Jetfire comes in and he wakes up the Transformers, and Starscream, the first act that he does is he kills Bumblebee. Like, he blasts Bumblebee's face right off. And I was just like, it's a shock moment. And I'm hoping that Bumblebee is not permanently dead. And then Starscream actually goes off and kills Jetfire, but then just as Starscream is about to kill Jazz, Optimus comes in and hits him with a clothesline. I believe it's called a rainbow clothesline, because Daniel Warren Johnson is a wrestling fan, a big fan of Japanese wrestling. So this one particular wrestling move, he does that and then does a suplex. I was like, wow, like this is like action right in issue 1 that you never expected them to do, if you've been reading 20 issues of IDW2 and you're just like, this is the most boring comic ever. Here, issue 1 of Image Comics, Skybound Entertainment, and Optimus is doing wrestling moves. But Starscream, on the other hand, we get to see in issue 2, he goes off and kills jet pilots. At the end of issue 1, he kills Carly's dad, which is really terrible. And the way it's done is just, it's brutal. It's really, really brutal. And, but then in issue 2, we get to see Cliffjumper. Ratchet ends up saving the Autobots by shoving a bunch of Autobot bodies into Optimus Prime's trailer. And then both Optimus and Ratchet take off and with Spike and Carly to protect themselves. And then, of course, we learn at the end of issue 2 that Spike's dad, I'm guessing he was in a war. We don't know where that storyline is going to end up, where Sparkplug, this is interesting because we get to see Sparkplug based upon the Marvel Comics, where he was I believe he said he was part of a war in the original Marvel Comics. So this Sparkplug is kind of more in line with that. The other thing is Optimus's character. And I found this version of Optimus very refreshing because we have seen Optimus Prime go from give me your face, primes don't party, it's just and to this and then wants to forgive Megatron for basically being this murderous tyrant. It made no sense to me. So now reading this comic book and seeing Optimus, where he sees the beauty of Earth and then realizes that he's so large that he could step on a creature. He steps on a deer and he feels so sorry about it, is very refreshing because, Optimus Prime going right back to the Marvel Comics and even to the cartoon where he would say things like, we have to protect the Decepticons from destroying this beautiful planet. Right at the end of episode 1, he goes off to protect humans that he doesn't even know who they are. And, this selfless hero. The one that Peter Cullen's brother said, be strong enough to be gentle. Don't be like these Hollywood heroes that, Michael Bay wants to turn into, like where you just want to rip everyone's face off. No, turn Optimus Prime into the hero that he's meant to be. And I really appreciated that. I also appreciate that Starscream is just going to show how evil he truly is. Now, the thing about Starscream is that he would do this in the cartoon. They couldn't show the violence to this level where he would squish humans. But in the cartoon, you saw him, Thundercracker and Skywarp, literally have human hostages and dump them, and the aerial bots had to save them. So showing Starscream being this vicious and evil is, like, again, another refreshing take. Like, I actually really appreciate that, because they've been, like, a lot of storytelling you see nowadays, they want to turn the Decepticons, you want to feel sorry for the Decepticons, instead of showing the Decepticons to be as evil as they truly can be. And yet the Decepticons consider the Autobots evil. But it kind of goes to show you the dynamic between the Autobots and Decepticons, that the Decepticons believe what they're doing is right. It's just very evil. And, so that's kind of how I appreciate the way that they did this in the comic book. And I really can't wait to see where issue 3 goes. I know some people are going to be a little, they may not particularly care for the artwork, but I actually really, really dug it. I dug the storytelling, and I can't wait to see where they go with this. So I really recommend picking up any of the Transformers comic books by Skybound Entertainment. If you can get your hands on it, definitely do so. Oh, one other thing I want to make mention of. So I met Mike Spicer at Ocala Comic-Con. And when I did, I ended up grabbing this. And if you notice that Ratchet has the cross that he has on his shoulders from the original toy and from the original cartoon, and they had to remove those crosses from re-releases of the toy, and all versions of Ratchet can no longer have that. That's why if you notice in season 2 of the G1 cartoon that Ratchet doesn't have the crosses on his shoulders, and they had to digitally remove them for the cover of issue 1. So that is something to take note of. And, it's just, it is what it is. It's the reason also why Studio Series 86 Ratchet has a different symbol on his shoulders. So that is something that you didn't know. It's something also to take note of. The Autobot symbols are hand-drawn, and Daniel Warren Johnson has gone off to say that he's had to redraw the Autobot symbols multiple times to get them right, so he's having a difficult time drawing them. I almost wish that he would, maybe if he just kind of like digitally added them, since he's already digitally removing the crosses off of Ratchet's shoulders, adding the Autobot symbols there on Ratchet's shoulders or Optimus's shoulders or the Decepticon symbols isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it does, and then maybe just draw over it. Just kind of like put the Autobot symbol there and then draw over it with your hands. Maybe that might help. So I'm just kind of giving some constructive criticism there. But again, I do recommend picking up the comic. I want to know what you guys think about these comic books. Of course, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video and subscribe. Check out my other videos as well. I have many more Transformers news, retrospectives, reviews, and more coming down the pipeline, so stay tuned for all of that. And as always, guys, until next time, till all are one.